Hello, fourth grade. Welcome back. I am so excited to be seeing y'all again today. So I want y'all to remember yesterday when we were talking a little bit more about our writing. We've been drafting some letters, and we were talking about how we kind of want our letters to sound more like us. We want more of our personality, more of the way that we talk, more of our feelings, more of our voice to be in it. And so that's called our writer's voice. And I know you don't know exactly what that means right now, but I promise by the end of today's lesson, you're going to have a much better idea. So I want to ask y'all, has anybody in here ever seen the TV show The Magic School Bus? Well, y'all are making me feel old. That was one of my favorite TV shows when I was growing up. Basically, the Magic School Bus is about a class of kids who get to go on all kinds of crazy fun science adventures with their teacher, Miss Frizzle. Miss Frizzle is the teacher that drives the Magic School Bus, and the Magic School Bus can take them anywhere in the world. So whatever it is that they're learning about, that's where the Magic School Bus will take them. If we were learning about the human body, like we were doing a couple of weeks ago, and I had the Magic School Bus, I might take y'all inside of a cell to see what the inside of the human body looks like. So because Miss Frizzle is so important to the show, I'm going to show you a quick video of some of her best moments from the whole entire show. And while you watch, I want you to look for any patterns that you notice about how Miss Frizzle looks in the show, okay? So give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Let me make sure that I can share sound as well.
But his white blood cells are doing such a good job. They now recognize us as enemies too.
Enemies? But we know what white blood cells do to enemies.
That's right, Arnold. They'll try to destroy us.
Destroy us?
Ah, the wonder of the human body.
Help me! Do something!
As I always say, hit it, Cornelia! There are several ways to find out the answer to that, and I choose this one. Yee-haw!
She's lost it.
As I always say, action!
How does she do that? Miss Frizzle, you could do the costumes.
Why, thank you, Carlos. As I always say, it's easy if you've got talent. Oh, that's what I love about the weather. It's always changing.
Where does she get her clothes?
All right, let me stop sharing my screen right fast. Okay, so what did y'all notice about her clothing? Something that I noticed was that in every single clip, Miss Frizzle was kind of wearing something different, right? Some of the clips she was wearing the same thing, but for the most part, every single one, she had on a different outfit. What else did y'all notice? Yeah, so something really cool about the Magic School Bus, and especially about Miss Frizzle as one of our main characters in the Magic School Bus, is that she chooses her outfit every single day based on the lesson that she's going to teach. So that would be like if every time I was going to teach you guys science, I came in and I was dressed up like what we were going to learn that day. So let me show y'all a really cool picture. This picture shows every single dress that Miss Frizzle wears in the entire show. So you can see in every single episode, she wears something completely different. So in episode 1, it's called Gets Lost in Space. Her dress is completely designed to look like outer space. In season 1, episode 8, they go to a haunted house and there's a piano on there. So that's important to the storyline. Even looking at something like Butterfly and the Bog Beast, which is season 2, episode 5, there's butterflies and some caterpillars all over her dress because they're learning about different ecosystems in that particular episode, right? So let me stop sharing my screen again. It's really important to kind of look at what Miss Frizzle's wearing because she is using her voice, right? Why do we think that Miss Frizzle would choose to wear a different dress for each lesson? What would that kind of tell her class? What would that communicate to her class? For me, I kind of think that Miss Frizzle wearing a different outfit for every single lesson shows that she cares about what she's teaching, but also that she knows what she's talking about. It means that she is passionate about what she's talking about. She really cares about it, and that she wants her class to know that she cares about them. So I like to use Miss Frizzle as an example because I think Miss Frizzle wears a different dress for each lesson to express herself and her personal style, but she also wears her dress to kind of communicate with her audience. Her audience is her class. When we're writing, we want to be just like Miss Frizzle. We want to choose our own personal style to express our feelings and our meaning through our words, while also making sure that we consider our audience. And so when we do this, we're really using what's called our writer's voice, which is what we're going to be learning about today. Remember, like I was talking about earlier, when we're writing our letters, we're wanting our voices to come through more. We want our style, our feelings to come through. And that's really what we're going to be learning today. So when we talk about voice, I want you to think about a clothes hanger, just like this one. Okay, so I will put one of these on each of your tables. But I want you to think about when we wake up in the morning, just like Miss Frizzle, we choose what we want to wear off of a clothes hanger that looks just like this. And we choose our clothes to give a specific message, right? We consider our audience, our own personal style before we get dressed in the morning. And so when you use your writer's voice, that's kind of how you're getting your writing dressed for the day, right? So today I'm wearing this nice jacket, and then I'm wearing this shirt because I want to look nice, neat, and professional for you guys as my students, right? When you got dressed today, you decided to put something on that would look cool for your friends, that would look cool for you, but that would also be nice and professional for school. So when we're thinking about writer's voice, I want us to think about this clothes hanger, and I'll put one on each of your tables. Let me go ahead and open up our lesson for today. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And so, like I said, we know that Miss Frizzle has a strong voice, but I want us to start to think about how we can develop our own voices. So let's really talk about what it means to have a writer's voice. So there are 4 very important parts to a writer's voice. The first part right here is called tone. Your tone represents the feelings and the mood that are created by an author's use of words. So for example, from this quote I pulled from Front Desk, which we read a couple weeks ago, it says, "But it wasn't just a grade. It meant I was no good at writing. And how was I supposed to win a motel if I wasn't any good at writing?" I want you to think about what you think the tone might be. Okay, remember the tone is like the feelings and the mood, the emotions that are created by the way the author uses their words. So what do you think the tone might be? I heard someone say that they think that this quote has a sad tone. Why do you think that it has a sad tone? Good, because you're talking about how she says that she's no good at writing. And she's kind of sad because she was asking, how am I supposed to win this motel if she's not any good at writing? This makes her feel sad, right? So you can tell by the way that Mia's writing that she feels sad and she wants us to feel sad. In our own writing, we can use words to help others understand how we want them to feel. So if I was writing something and I wanted you to feel happy, I would make sure that my language that I use, the words that I use, the feelings that I use would convey that emotion to you. The second part of voice over here is establishing a purpose. This means knowing the reason why you're writing. So let's say you decide to write a letter to the principal. What could be a few reasons why you're wanting to write a letter? Okay, so maybe you're wanting to thank the principal for doing such a good job with the school. Okay, what's another way or another reason? Okay, so maybe you have an idea for the school. That's a good idea too. Well, both are valid reasons or valid purposes, but each reason is going to change the way that you write your letter, right? If you're trying to convince the principal that something is a good idea, you're going to write that letter a lot more differently than you're going to write a letter thanking the principal for something that they've done. So this is also a part of our writer's voice, right? Figuring out the reason why we're writing and then making sure that comes across in our writing. The next part of our writer's voice is the audience themselves. Okay, so this is who you're writing for. So remember I said Miss Frizzle's audience with her clothes hanger, with all the clothes that she chooses, Miss Frizzle's audience is her class. So let's say you're writing a book report, okay? Who is it that you're writing the book report for? Is it for me as your teacher, or is it for your classmate sitting right next to you? Or is it for your grown-up at home? Chances are you're going to write your book report differently depending on who's going to be reading it. If you know that you're going to be turning it in for a grade, you might write it a lot differently than if you were writing it for your friend to know what the book is about, right? This is a big part of your writer's voice, okay? If you can figure out who your audience is, you can use your words to make your writing even stronger and more powerful to those people who are going to be reading it. And the last part of your writer's voice is the risk that you take, right? So we've been talking a little bit about how to put your personality in the past couple of days, but the risk is something that we haven't really talked about. So when we're talking about risk, we're talking about the way that we experiment with our words and with our writing, right? So let's think about grammar with this one. If you were writing a short story for me, I would expect you to use complete sentences, good punctuation, check for your run-on sentences, and I would expect good capitalization, right? But what if your story would sound better if it had a longer run-on sentence? What do you think would happen if you did that? Right. And so part of having writer's voice is knowing that even though a long run-on sentence might not be grammatically correct, it's a risk that you can take to make your voice stronger in your writing. As an author, you know exactly what you're trying to say, right? So your writer's voice gives you a few tools to better communicate your message, to better tell me or your friend or your next door neighbor or your grown up at home exactly what it is that you're trying to say. So now that we know what all four of the big parts are, let's take a better look at each part. So first, let's talk about tone. Tone is so important to a writer's voice because it helps the reader understand the author's point of view and their feelings, right? When we think about tone, we can think about color and emotion. When we read or see something sad, what is one color you can think of? Just one. Blue, right? Almost everybody in here said blue. Even the word blue can literally mean feeling sad. If you look it up in your dictionary, the word blue can mean sad. Tone in a piece makes us feel those kinds of colors and those kinds of emotions. So a really strong writer's voice will make somebody feel something with their tone. Tone is also important because it's one part of a writer's voice that exists in the entire piece of writing, right? So when we're writing our letters, you don't just have tone in your first paragraph where you're introducing yourself. You have a tone throughout the entire piece of your letter, right? If I was going to write a short story with a happy tone, the words that I use and the way that I write would mostly be happy. This doesn't mean that I can't have one small part of my story that's sad, but it instead means that even with that sad part, the whole point of my story at the end of it, you would still feel happy. You would still feel a happy tone. And you would probably even think about the color yellow if I made my tone just happy enough. Let's talk about considering our audience next. So remember, as writers, we are always looking for someone else to read our writing. That's why we write. Your reader is your audience, and your audience can be anyone. It can be a teacher like me. It can be a friend. It can be a family member, or it can even be yourself. If you're writing in a diary, maybe you're writing to yourself, or if you're writing a grocery list, maybe you're writing to yourself, right? Each reader that you write for is going to have a different need in your writing, especially when you think about why you're writing something, right? When you write an assignment for school, it probably sounds a lot different than when you're writing like a letter to your friend. So when we use our writer's voice, that's one question we have to ask ourselves. Am I doing school writing or am I doing fun writing? Am I texting my friends with fun writing or am I writing a paper for Miss Gentry? We also have to consider our readers' needs, right? So if you were writing for a first grader, remember they're like 6 or 7, you're going to want to use words that they can understand. Your reader in that case needs easier vocabulary words. But if you're trying to write something persuasive, maybe you're trying to convince me that we need a snack drawer in the classroom, you'll want to write knowing what my needs are as your reader. As your reader in that case, I would need evidence and proof that a class needs a snack drawer. And so as a writer, your job is to use your voice to meet those needs for me as a reader so that I completely understand what it is that you're trying to say and I agree with you. So all of these components, all of these pieces of this puzzle, they all work together, right? So it's really important to me that you understand that they all are together. Even though they're all important on their own, each part does play a really big role in how an overall piece will sound and feel. So we can figure out the reason why we are writing, right? So if I give you an assignment and I say, hey, I need you to write me a short story. Your reason for writing is to turn in your assignment, right? That's our purpose. This then helps us figure out our audience. So, okay, I'm writing an assignment for school. So my audience is Miss Gentry. Once we know our audience, then we can figure out the tone that we want to use. Remember, that's our feelings, our emotions, and how we want to use our language and maybe play around with risk a little bit. So, for example, I want us to think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, okay? When Dr. King wrote this speech, he knew he was writing because he wanted equality for all races. And this was his purpose. Then he figured out that in order to achieve this purpose, he would be writing to those who didn't believe in what he believed in, right? So these were people like racists who didn't want or who wanted inequality. Once Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. figured out his audience, he knew how to use tone, so his feelings and his emotions, and risk to convince those who disagreed with him that equality was important and necessary in the United States. So let me, oops, I showed you guys something too early. Let me pull up this speech, and I want you guys to listen for the voice that you hear. Let me get rid of this ad, but I want y'all to listen to the way that he uses his writer's voice to really convince people that this is the best option.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
Okay, so I know that that is kind of difficult to understand, but I want y'all to think about how strong of a voice Dr. King really had. He was able to change the world because of the words that he chose to use and the emotions that he could convey, that he could communicate to his audience through his writing and through his speaking, Okay, so just imagine if he can change the world with speeches like that, what you could do with your writer's voice. Okay, so before we move on to our next activity, I want us to do a little bit of a brain check, okay? So I'm gonna read this quote to you. It's also from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he says, "We must learn to live together as brothers or we will perish as fools." What do you think the tone of this Dr. King quote is? I want you to share that with your table and then explain why you think that with your table. And then when you're finished doing that, I want you to get with your table partner and I want you to get out some pens and some markers to get ready for the next activity, okay? So let me stop sharing my screen. Y'all go ahead and discuss amongst yourselves, and I'll bring us back in a minute. All right, y'all should be able to wrap it up a little bit. So now that we have kind of learned exactly what voice is, I want us to see what voice really looks like in a piece of writing, okay? And so I'm going to share with y'all one of my very favorite books of all time, and it's called The Monster at the End of This Book. And my dad actually used to read this to me when I was little, and I think it's just a great example of how you can hear a writer using their voice. Okay, so let me reshare. I got everything set up for us. So like I said, this is called The Monster at the End of This Book, and I'm going to read it out loud for you. Actually, let me fix something real quick. I'm going to read it out loud for you, and I'm going to ask some questions while we're reading it out loud, okay? Because I have some things I want y'all to think about as we are reading the book. Okay. So this is called The Monster at the End of This Book, starring lovable, furry old Grover by John Stone and illustrated by Mike Smolin. And Grover starts by saying, "Hello, everybody." What did that say? On the cover, what did that say? Did that say there will be a monster at the end of this book? It did? Oh, I am so scared of monsters. So let's take a quick pause. I know we're only one page in, but I want to ask y'all, what do you notice about the sentences on this page? Yeah, I did notice that Grover uses a lot of punctuation marks. Like right here, he uses 3 question marks, and right here, he uses 3 exclamation points. Why do you think that the author did that? What do you think that that does for us as readers? Okay, so you think that it makes us feel a little bit more, it makes us have more feelings? Okay, for sure. So just keep thinking about that while we continue to read, okay? Shh, listen, I have an idea. If you do not turn any pages, we will never get to the end of this book. And that is good because there is a monster at the end of this book. So please do not turn the page. Let's take a quick pause again. What feeling does this page give you as we're reading it together? For me, I kind of feel like maybe we're supposed to feel scared or nervous. Why do y'all think I feel that way? What would tell me that on this page? Okay, so you see the smaller font down here. You see that it's big up here and then it gets small. Okay. What about the writer's words would make me feel kind of scared or nervous? Yeah, the use of the shh and then saying, so please do not turn the page. To me, that makes me feel a little bit like, oh no, what's on the other page? What's on the next page? You turn the page. Maybe you do not understand. You see, turning pages will bring us to the end of this book, and there's a monster at the end of this book, but this will stop you from turning the pages. See, I'm tying the pages together so you cannot. You turned another page. You do not know what you were doing to me. Now, stop turning the pages. So at this point, how do you think Grover feels at this point in the story? It kind of seems like he's angry with us for still reading. Why do you think he feels angry with us? What on this page kind of tells you that he might be upset? Okay, so you're noticing the exclamation marks. Something I noticed is that all of the letters in the first sentence and all the letters in this last sentence on the page are in all capitals. And we know that that is not proper punctuation and grammar skills, right? But it's interesting and it helps me feel like Grover might be upset. There, I, Grover, am nailing this page to the next one so that you will not be able to turn it and we will not get any closer to the monster at the end of this book. Bing, clonk, bonk, bing. All right, all right, all right. Do you know that every time you turn another page, you not only get us closer to the monster at the end of this book, but you make a terrible mess. This will stop you from turning pages. A heavy, thick, solid, strong brick wall. I would just like to see you try to turn this page. Do we think I'm going to turn the page? Do you know that you are very strong? The next page is the end of this book, and there is a monster at the end of this book. Oh, I'm so scared. Please do not turn the page. Please, please, please. Well, look at that. This is the end of the book, and the only one here is me. I, lovable, furry old Grover, am the monster at the end of this book. And you were scared. I told you and told you there is nothing to be afraid of. The end. So how do you think Grover's feelings changed from the beginning of the book to the end of the book? Okay, so at the beginning, Grover was kind of scared, and then he started to get kind of angry, and then he was happy at the end. I think I agree with that. How do you know, though? How do you know that that's what Grover was feeling? From the different words that were used and the different risks that were taken. Okay, what else? Okay, so you notice that at the end of the book, the punctuation kind of calmed down a little bit. There weren't a bunch of punctuation marks everywhere. Okay, well, let me stop sharing my screen and let's have a little conversation about kind of what we read, okay? So I want to ask y'all, after reading that book, who do you think is the audience for the book? Do you think that parents are the intended audience or kids? Okay, you think kids? Is it kids that are students or kids that are basketball players or just kids in general? Why do you think just kids in general? Okay, so because there was pictures in the book, okay. So where were some spots where you heard a lot of emotion in the book? The spots that had a lot of exclamation points, okay. Where else? The spots that were in all capital letters, okay. What words showed a lot of emotion to y'all? Okay, so there were some words like shh that showed some scared feelings. Okay. Was it just words that showed emotion in the story, or were there other things that made you feel something? Okay, so like the pictures and the colors that were used, those all made you feel something. Okay. How do you think the pictures in the book help you understand the author's style of writing? Yeah, the pictures were funny. So we think that the author has a funny style of writing. How do you think that that contributes to the author's voice? Do you think that it makes the voice stronger or do you think it makes it weaker? Stronger? Okay, why? Okay, so you think it makes it stronger because it helps make the words make more sense? Okay. Were there any spots where you really liked the writer's voice? Okay, so tell me that part that you liked. Okay, you liked the last page. Why did you like that part? Because he's happy again at the end and you could feel his happiness? Okay, were there any parts that y'all didn't like? Was there anything that you didn't like about the book or about the way that the author used his voice? No, y'all like the whole book? Me too, I love the whole book. Well, these are all things, those questions I just asked you, they're all things that we have to think about while we read and while we write, right? So our writer's voice is important to the message that our writing gives. Thinking about the monster at the end of this book and the discussion that we just had, I kind of want us to look at some parts of the book and explore just how strong the writer's voice was. So I told you to get with your table partner, and I told you to take out some markers and some pens. And so I'm going to pass out some sentence strips, and I have a piece of paper right here that I'm going to use as a sentence strip instead, because y'all are taking the last of my sentence strips, okay? So in a little bit, y'all are going to be working with your partner to create a piece of art from one of the sentences in the book. And the art, I'm going to want you to think about the author's tone and his overall voice. But first, I'm going to kind of show you how I would do that. So let me pull up the book again, and let me show y'all the part that I am going to be talking about. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I am looking at this page to do this, okay? So I really like this sentence. What I'm gonna have y'all do is I'm gonna have you choose a sentence in the book that you think shows really strong writer's voice, okay? And I'm gonna have us write that sentence right here in the middle of our sentence strip. Again, I have a piece of paper because y'all are taking the last of my sentence strips, but we're gonna put it right here in the middle. So the sentence that I'm gonna choose is, "You turned another page." So I'm going to take a black pen, and that's what I want y'all to do. I want you to use a black pen in the middle. And I'm going to write it right smack dab in the middle. And I'm going to write it just like it's written in the story. I'm not going to draw it the way it's written in the story. Okay, so I'm not going to do bubble letters. You can if you want to. But I am going to write it in all capital letters because that is important in my mind to the voice. Okay, so I'm going to write "You turned another page!" Exclamation point. Okay, so I have that written right here in the middle of my paper. Okay, so once you write down that sentence in the middle, I want us to decorate these beautiful sentence strips because I'm going to hang them up all around the classroom. I want us to decorate them and draw on them and illustrate them with colors and pictures and different things that help us understand the feeling that this sentence gives us, okay? So for me, I feel like this sentence, "You turned another page," is just pure frustration. It's almost anger, it's irritation, right? So for me, I'm going to take the color red, this red right here, because I think that Grover is extremely irritated with us at this point. And I'm going to draw just a big red cloud around my sentence because that's kind of how this makes me feel. It makes me feel like those words are clouded with all of this red anger. So I'm going to draw it just like that, if you can see that, okay? Something else that it makes me think of is like the palm face emoji, the one that's like, "Oh my goodness, how could you even do this?" So I'm going to go ahead and draw that one. And yellow is really light, so I'm going to use orange. But I'm going to draw that face palm emoji somewhere on my paper, okay? Because that's something that this reminds me of. It's just like pure, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that this is happening. So I'm going to draw a face. And then I'm going to draw a palm. Okay, I'm going to draw it just like that. And y'all know Miss Gentry is not an artist, okay? But we're going to draw anyway because it's really important to me, one, that y'all decorate my classroom for me, but two, that I can really feel the emotions and that I understand why you're feeling those things when you're reading and when you're writing, okay? So that's just, those are two things, right? I have my red cloud and I have a face palm emoji. Something else that I think of is like a big, like a person with smoke coming out of their ears. Okay, so I'm going to draw that too. And I'm going to draw a pink person because I think that pink is a passionate color. It feels like there's a lot of passion in this. He's so frustrated with you because he's so upset about this, right? So I'm going to draw a person with steam coming out of their ears. I'm going to make sure that person looks angry. Okay, so drew this person down here with steam coming out of their ears. I want us to come up with at least 4 or 5 things that, you know, this picture makes us feel. I also feel some electricity from this. I feel like there's lightning bolts on the page, right? But I feel like Grover is so upset that he could just like strike a lightning bolt at any point. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw a cloud with a big lightning bolt coming out of it. Okay. I drew that right there in the top right corner. And I drew it in black because I didn't want the lightning bolt to be yellow, but I'll color the lightning bolt in a minute. And then one more thing that I kind of feel from this is I feel just like a sense of fire. I feel some just anger that is so big. It is just this big, kind of wood fire. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little fire down in my other corner. Use red and orange because Ms. Gentry is fancy with her fire. Okay, so now I have my fire in here. Okay, so if you look at my whole thing, my whole sentence strip, I have a big red cloud, and if I had coloring pencils, I would color behind this. I have my lightning bolt, I have my fire, I have somebody so angry that steam is coming out of their ears, and then I have a face palm, right? So now that I have some pictures that are showing me this, and I'm expecting y'all's to be a little bit more detailed because you're going to have more time. I also want you to show me the spots that tell you this person is angry. This author feels sad. This author feels happy. Okay. And so in this one sentence, you turned another page. I'm going to use a different color. In this case, we're going to use yellow for this. Get my pen together. The first thing that told me Grover was feeling an extreme emotion was this exclamation point at the end right here, okay? So the exclamation point, I'm going to circle that in yellow because that is one piece of evidence that tells me, hey, Grover might be feeling passionate about this, okay? Another thing that I'm noticing is all capital letters, okay? So I'm going to put brackets around my whole sentence and write capital letters. Okay, because to me, that means that he's feeling a lot of feelings. He's feeling a big emotion. So his letters are big. His letters are all capital, right? And then the third thing that I noticed that made me feel frustrated and angry for Grover was the word another. Okay, he says you turned another page. So not only is he mad that you turned a page, he's mad that you have continued to turn pages and you're turning another page. Okay, so that's at least 3 things that I found from this one very short 4-word sentence that helped me understand what Grover's feelings were. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to drop the link in the chat to the book and put it in here for you. Okay. So you and your table partner, you are going to use this link and you're going to find a sentence. It must be a different sentence than mine, okay? You're going to find a different sentence in here. And you are going to write that sentence, remember, just as it's written right in the middle of your sentence strip. And I want y'all to do the same thing. I want you to talk to each other and say, how does this make you feel? What colors do you think of? What pictures do you think of? What images do you see? Okay. So I want y'all to do that with your table partners together. And let me make sure I'm not missing anything before I send you off to go and do that. Okay. Do y'all have any questions about what you're supposed to be doing with your table partner before I let you go? Yeah, so I do want the sentence right in the middle, and I want you to have at least 4 symbols, 4 colors, for whatever the case is that represent that. And I want you to find at least 2 pieces of evidence in your sentence to underline or to highlight that show me exactly what you're talking about, okay? So when you finish doing that, I want you, so make sure you're working on it, but when you're finished, I want you to present in pairs to your other table pair, okay? So you have your 2 table partners. I want you to present to the other group when you're finished, okay? So I'll give y'all a little bit to go ahead and do that. So now that you guys have given me your beautiful sentence strips, okay, I want us to think about our own writer's voice, okay? Remember the clothes hanger. We're picking the clothes that our writing is going to get to wear. Every time we're using our writer's voice, that's what we're doing, right? So now that you've had a chance to explore your writer's voice, I really want you to practice using your own writer's voice in your writing, okay? So for this assignment, we are going to be working on letters again. We've been working on letters for the past week or so. And you're going to be writing a letter answering a question that someone has asked you. Okay. And I know you're all thinking, what question? We don't have a question. Well, each of you is going to choose a popsicle stick. Okay. So these are my popsicle sticks. Let me take them out real quick. So there is 1 green popsicle stick that you're going to choose and 1 tan popsicle stick that you're going to use, okay? The green popsicle stick is going to tell you who asked the question. So it might say Miss Gentry, it might say your best friend, it might say your parents, it might say the principal. The tan popsicle stick is going to tell you what question the person has asked you, okay? So this question could be something like, what's the best ice cream flavor? So let's say you draw green popsicle stick that says Miss Gentry and tan popsicle stick that says are cats or dogs better. You're going to write Miss Gentry a letter saying what you think is better, cats or dogs. Okay, that's just an example. That's not what the prompt is. You're going to get your prompts whenever you choose your sticks, okay? Your answer needs to be your own personal opinion. So don't try and look anything up or anything. It needs to be how you feel about it. And I want your writing to be colorful. I want it to show emotion, and I want it to use your personal voice and your style to really showcase what your voice looks like in your writing, okay? So when you write your letter, there are 2 templates that you can choose from, okay? I have them printed out for you, and I'm going to show you online what they look like. Let me open them real quick, and I will share my screen, okay? So there are 2 that you get to choose from, and that choice is important, guys, okay? Because remember, we want to think about our audience whenever we're writing at all times. And so if you were writing the president a letter, you don't want to use a crazy looking template, okay? So let me share my screen and show you kind of what I'm talking about. So the first letter template is a professional letter template, okay? So it looks like this. It's beige and it's kind of just nice looking. It's all put together. The second template is more fun, okay? It has some colors on it. It still follows the format of a letter. We're not throwing that out the window. You still need to start with dear whoever, do a comma, indent and go down, and you still need to sign it with your name. But you know, the format can be, the template that you use can be different depending on who your audience is, okay? So think about it. If you want your letter to come across as professional or like school writing, you might want to use which one? The professional one, right? If you want it to come across as more fun writing, then you can use the more fun looking template, okay? And so when you finish your letter, I want you to log onto your iPad and I want you to use Flipgrid to record yourself reading your letter out loud, okay? So you're gonna handwrite your letter, and then you're gonna log into your iPad and log into Flipgrid, and you're gonna film yourself reading that letter that you just wrote, okay? Then you're gonna listen back on Flipgrid to what you just read, and I want you to comment on your video one spot where you heard your writer's voice, and I want you to tell me why you thought that that part was strong, okay? And if you don't feel like typing, you can use your speech to text feature on there whenever you're commenting. That's totally fine. Do y'all have any questions before I send you off to go ahead and work on your letters? Okay, I'm going to give you guys like 15-20 minutes to work on them. Yeah, so I will come around and you guys will pick your green popsicle stick and your tan popsicle stick, and you can't change, you can't switch your people. Don't go around and trade your popsicle sticks. I want you guys to really think outside of the box for this, okay? Okay. So I will log into Flipgrid later and watch all of y'all's videos just to kind of see and read your comments as well to see kind of where we're at with this and see if we need to talk about it some more. But I just want y'all to remember that our writer's voice is very important. Remember, it is like styling our writing every day. It's like choosing the clothes that our writing is going to wear. Okay, so we need to be thinking about our audience, our purpose, our tone, the risks that we're taking, no matter what it is that we're writing. We're practicing with letters right now, but at some point I want you to know that you're always going to be using your writer's voice. Okay. How did you feel writing the letters went? Did you feel like it went well? Do you think it went bad? What happened? Okay, so you're still a little bit confused about how to use risk. Okay, so I can write that down. I'll write that down and we'll talk about that a little bit more, using risk. What else? You liked being able to choose your own template? Yeah, I found those templates online and I thought that that would be a really cool way for y'all to practice figuring out who your audience is. If you didn't finish it today, you can try and finish it for homework, or I can give you guys a little bit of time during independent reading tomorrow, but I want to make sure that it's finished before the end of independent reading tomorrow. So make sure that you get to working on it if you need to finish it, okay? Okay, so like I said, voice is really important. This is not the last day that we're going to be talking about it. We just started practicing and we're going to practice a little bit more. But for now, that was the end of our lesson. Before you guys go, I just have this little exit ticket for you. I know you love my exit tickets. It is 4 questions, and some of them are multiple choice and some of them are writing. Okay, so again, if you need to use your speech to text, use your speech to text. And if you need help writing it, come and find me or ask somebody at your table to help you out with spelling and everything, okay? I want y'all to answer this to the best of your abilities, and I'll look at that and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll figure out what else we need to practice. Don't forget to do your 30 minutes of reading tonight. If you need to finish writing your letter, finish writing your letter. But otherwise, thank y'all so much for a great lesson and I will see you tomorrow.